Welcome to the Block Exploring Podcast, your first step into the world of crypto and blockchain. The Block Exploring Podcast is your one-stop place to find quick, clear, and unbiased information on everything in the crypto space. Our goal is to help you grow familiar with the crypto space by growing along with us as we go on our crypto journeys. Follow @Block Exploring on Twitter for our newest uploads and our publishing schedule. We, here at Block Exploring, are crypto enthusiasts working hard towards becoming experts. Today's podcast is presented by co-hosts Tommy and Elias. Find us on Twitter under @SabaiSquared and @OtokoCrypto. Right now you can find us on Spotify and YouTube. Before we start the episode, we would like to inform you that we are not financial advisors. Therefore, nothing said in this podcast should be considered financial advice. Always contact your financial advisor before making any investment. With that said, sit back and enjoy today's podcast. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 9 of News Bytes, the Block Exploring podcast. This week, we'll be talking to you about the state of the market, which is in flux. We'll be discussing Asia adoption and the desirability of Bitcoin. Now, Tommy, how's this past week been for you?
Well, yeah, I think this last week has been, for many people, like a roller coaster. And in general, people like to think of the crypto market as a roller coaster ride. But I feel like now more than in the past few weeks, it's pretty applicable. Like, I'm just thinking back to the times where, Doge was pumping, SHIB was pumping, everything was just, up. Like, all the charts looked like a vertical line upwards. And what would people do to go back to those times? But now it's really like a day to day. It can really switch from being all this bearish sentiment one day, and then the next day there's just a lot of bullish sentiment, and like a tweet could trigger anything, like Elon's tweet. I mean, a lot of people are reporting Elon's tweet today sent Bitcoin flying down like a couple of thousand, but who knows, like anything, like there's just lots of news coming out as well. So anything really moves the market quite a bit in either direction. And it's really hard to say. And I think what's sort of emblematic of the crypto space now is like this meme that I posted on my Instagram, which is this hybrid animal of a bear and a bull. And I think that's pretty apt description of the crypto space right now, and probably how many people are feeling, just confused.
Yeah, I agree. I've been looking back on the statement I made in like last week's podcast, where I was telling you that I was like relatively bearish on the space right now, and I was looking at kind of like signals and what's happening. I think everyone is rather confused, but if I'm looking at like indeed what you're saying, if even a tweet of Elon can send Bitcoin flying down for a bit, that the space is in flux. But I think that indicates that there's more than just something like Elon's tweets going on. For instance, there's options expiry, and there's like meme stocks being sold rampantly, and kind of the effects of that are that the profits from those meme stocks, the profits from those shorts and long calls, they tend to go into crypto after a while, and because they're higher risk, but the yields from options expiries tend to be much higher as well because they're higher risk. And I think that these kinds of events that take place like every month, that they tend to add to the crypto space, because these people, they tend to buy with their profits, or And what I'm seeing here is I see a lot of credit being given at Elon Musk, because like the guy said a few negative things about Bitcoin, but I think there's more, because there's been like a proven track record now that with every tweet that Elon made, the effect it had on the chart of like Doge and of Bitcoin has about halved with each tweet, because people started to get used to this guy tweeting about it a lot. And I think that's something.
The Elon tweet halving. Tweet halving.
The tweet halving, yeah, exactly. But it's really something that you have to, I don't know, take into account, and also take it with a grain of salt, because I think these kinds of dips are also just natural, so not or at least organic. They're not just caused by Elon. I think it's just the general space right now being yeah.
A lot of people feel like we're still following the Wyckoff, you know, pattern that's being printed at the moment, and a lot of people feel like at the moment we're at a very contentious period. There's a lot of FUD. There's a lot of people don't know what they're doing, what to do rather, not that they don't know what they're doing. But yeah, there's just a lot of FUD I see in the market. I see a lot of articles like, 2 Bitcoin price indicators suggest, Bitcoin hasn't bottomed yet, or it's we might see a dead cat bounce. These types of articles, constantly come out, and like you're saying, like there's a lot of organic things happening in the market at the moment, and but I also don't think we can discount how easily the crypto space can be manipulated as well. And as retail might be able to move the market, I feel like it takes a lot for retail to move the market, but it's very easy for a whale to really just use FUD to move the market in a certain direction.
Yeah, I agree. I think from what I've seen is that a lot of people they want the space to be bullish, right? But you'd expect a more bullish sentiment to be reported then.
Right.
Like if you look at the fear and greed index and things like this, they're all on like max fear, and all these kinds of indicators are pointing this out. I think it's something to take also with a grain of salt, because these indicators, they're good and all, but the greed indicator for Bitcoin, for instance, has been on like 94 since like October 2020. And these kinds of like it can indicate a lot, but it's also the space is growing.
At least, I've seen so many new projects. Like every day, there's a new project, or people are announcing something new, or there's like this new development that's happening. So like, I think that's at least that's like most definitely bullish. The fact that like things are being developed, things are being built, people are still interested in this project, that project. I think that overall is pretty bullish, but rather long term, I think we've said it many times, I think we're bullish. I'm bullish on the crypto space, but in the short term, it's just really hard to tell what's going to happen in the short term. So I think sort of my approach is that I just sort of make my bed, and I just sleep in it, and just see what happens from there. Then you recalibrate, but like you just got to be doing something. You can't really you just got to be doing something that you feel like happy with, that that's not been heavily influenced by others, because it's very like sensitive to your situation, what you do.
That's true. I think I've been looking into kind of what kind of indicators do you have, right, for the market to be in a bull run or in a bear situation. And if I look at something like the meme coins like the Doge, those are getting heavily used right now. They're being every single platform is Tommy is offline. So every platform which listed Doge ever since the Coinbase listing has reported a massive increase in Doge price. And Doge is one of those coins that I feel, especially like the meme coins, they heavily indicate the sentiment of the retail investor, and paired with that, like the whale will follow, I feel, the retail investor sentiment.
Right.
And if you look at something like Doge, if it has increases like this still, and it's not just increases of like 20%, it's 30, 40, 50% increases that it experiences. I think it went from like 20 cents to 35, 30 cents over the past 2 days. I think that's a significant increase, and that's something that you don't, at first I thought this market was in a bit of a dead cat's bounce, like, oh, there's some increase. But if you look at the fact that there was a stable increase for over a week, and it was fairly,
Yep.
it wasn't like a hype increase. It wasn't like the candles were extremely long and green, followed by
Yeah.
extremely long red downwards candles. They were stagnating, but upwards. And I think that's completely understandable after, a 50% Bitcoin crash. That's
Exactly.
very
And
understandable.
I think at this point, like, I think the cat would have bounced by this point, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, if we see steady growth like that, I think this trend might continue, but obviously, like we just said before, anything can literally happen. But it's not only crypto, I feel, that's having a hard time at the moment, but NFTs are having a pretty rough time, where loads of articles have come out saying that, like, NFTs are dead, essentially. Because I think a couple of months ago, NFTs were trade, and total amount of NFTs sold was in, like, the hundreds of thousands, in terms of value. But in the recent months, maybe the amount of NFTs that have sold and the collective value have only, amounted to like 19,000, 1900,000. So it's a dramatic drop. I think it was my numbers aren't correct, but at least a 90% decrease in NFT sales, which is pretty worrying for NFTs. But I think it's just the moment, right?
Yeah.
At the moment, like, people might be bearish on NFTs because it's such an illiquid asset, and I think illiquid assets are sort of have the propensity for these kind of drops. Like, that can't just happen with illiquid assets.
No, I agree. That was what I was saying a while back. Like, the fact that it's so illiquid means that, I don't know, it's very sensitive to these kinds of fluctuations. And of course, like, NFTs were all the hype a few months ago, meaning that a lot of people were interested into it. And then I think a lot of people found that they couldn't resell, or that something like this happened. And gas fees on ETH became very high, which stumped the market. But I think that NFTs in general still have a big future in front of them. It's
definitely could.
It's not people giving up on NFTs. It's just right now the sales are low, and I don't think you can exactly compare it to, like, traditional assets or assets like crypto, which isn't traditional, but like it's a very liquid asset. I don't think it's fair to compare the NFT market to the crypto market, because there's just a severe. It's like comparing the art market to the stock exchange. It depends on a lot of factors.
Completely different. Yeah, and I think this is probably good in the long term for the NFT space, because people, there's millions of projects popping up all over the place, and some of them just aren't going to be worth anything in the long term. And this kind of, well, I suppose volatility or market movement weeds out these projects that just don't have the staying power. And then people can sort of check what are, like, projects that actually have value over time, what projects have staying power, why they have that staying power. And I think from here on out, currently we see a lot of innovation in the NFT space anyways. I just think it's gonna take some time as well.
No, that's true. And it will also, the NFT space will also, balance out a bit more the more the crypto space matures, and the more kind of like payment cryptos, I think, will become normal. I feel like then the NFT space will have like an easier time being traded, because right now there's no real, there are a few kind of like, financial kind of payment based cryptos, but none of them are very like stable, none of them are very like reliable. They all have major flaws. It's something to look out for, and I think that the NFT space would severely benefit from like a more stable kind of currency that isn't a stable coin, which is just an emulated US dollar,
Right.
And I think the moment that becomes more of a solid, like a thing, then the NFT space will also severely benefit from that. And I think that's also the first footstep that the crypto space will have when it comes to something like mass adoption. Just a good fundamental, good transaction speed, but then very reliable and not very fluctuating kind of currency that can be used. The moment that that becomes a thing, the moment that that becomes available, I feel like a lot of stability and mass adoption will be more feasible.
Right. I think so as well. And I think something that might help with that is these NFT platforms moving to layer 2 solutions. Like a large amount of NFT projects are Ethereum based at the moment, which of course, like we've just alluded to, like has a lot of issues arise when there's high gas fees. But that's why I think L2 solutions are extremely bullish, like Polygon, Arbitrum, that's just started testing, and I think they've just released their first mainnet. But all these layer 2 solutions will be extremely bullish for NFT projects moving towards to them to mitigate these issues that you usually run into in the mainnet, in the Ethereum mainnet.
No, I agree.
But it's an interesting time.
Yeah, but I think there's very bullish signs coming up, and a lot of people are saying that the crypto market is gonna kind of start moving back into like the DeFi projects and hyping up the DeFi projects. And
yes, this is what
that's
I
one
want.
of those consensus kind of like future predictions that you hear right now. And I think the fact that they are still out there and that they're still fairly popular, so something like people saying, put your money in DeFi projects, make it a DeFi summer. That's kind of a signal that the bull market isn't over yet. And not purely wishful thinking, there's a bunch of signals for this, because in Asia, in a major Philippine project opened up to crypto trading, right? It's an e-wallet called Gcash.
Gcash. Yeah, I think this is incredibly bullish. Like if I think there's a propensity to be very Western centric in the space. I mean, we live in Europe, and a lot of the news is very I think Western centric in general. But I think we can't we shouldn't be blind to the fact that crypto is international. Everybody's using crypto for various different reasons. And the Asia market is just massive. Like if you just think of, how many people are in China, just how many people are in India, and just how many people are in Asia as a whole. Like, the more mass adoption that happens across the globe, of course, but in Asia as well, it's just extremely bullish. And it's interesting to see Asia-centered projects, proliferating and thriving in many cases.
That's true, and also it's important not to underestimate the Philippines with their crypto involvement, because there's a bunch of projects going on in the Philippines right now. I think a lot of like Chainlink based projects are Philippine, and it's definitely one of those areas that is very liberal with its crypto adoption and with allowing a lot of stuff to happen, and a lot of innovation comes out of the Philippines in the crypto space. So it's definitely not a small player either. It's not like it's not like Belgium or something. It's a real it's one of the crypto capitals, I would almost say, the Philippines.
Okay.
So it's definitely a big player, and there's a lot of a lot of holders are from the Philippines. So it's definitely a big opportunity, and I think it's an incredibly bullish sign that that Gcash is starting to accept crypto, because apparently it's a major wallet. So
That's pretty interesting to see how different Asian governments and Asian projects sort of adopt will approach the crypto space, crypto blockchain space in general. it's almost like in the West as well, where like it's just everyone's kind of doing their own thing, trying to figure it out at their own pace. So like you're saying, you know, how the Philippines are very they're very lax with the regulation, right? But like if you just move to another ASEAN country like Thailand, who's really upping their regulation in terms of like if you're using DeFi, you're gonna have to register or something like that, right? They're really clamping down on, you know, knowing your customer and the crypto space in general. So it's and then you have China, who bans it every other week or something, you know.
No, that's true.
So it's pretty interesting what's happening. And we also spoke about this ASEAN consortium as well, that was formed to push forward crypto blockchain adoption, like awareness and education. Well, that's super bullish stuff happening, and there's just so many people who should be tapping into it.
And it's definitely, you're completely right about what you're saying with the news. The news is very American, Eurocentric. That's all the news you get, basically, and the only bans you hear about are non-Western, non-American bans on crypto. It's something to definitely watch out for, because, you know, Asia is a big continent.
Big player. We're always talking about, you know, the US SEC because they're super influential, but there are literally SECs everywhere. in every country who are doing their own thing. That, you know, paying attention to them is also significant importance.
And many Asian securities commissions have already made very decent and concrete rulings on what is a security and what isn't, and they've ruled that many of these crypto projects aren't securities offerings or anything of the kind. So it's actually, if you look at the regulatory kind of framework that they're working with, Asia is ahead of America and Europe, I would say.
Yeah, that's ahead of the game. Maybe we need to be talking about that more. Maybe we need to, you know, explore that a bit more, and because maybe that's like where the direction of things will actually move in, and they're already there.
I think so.
You know, but people aren't talking about it.
No, people talk about like Switzerland or like kind of the progressive European countries, and they talk about how the SEC is dealing with crypto, but they're really lagging behind Asia. So definitely something to look.
We need to be checking out what's happening there more. We'll talk about it on the pod. You know, let us know, Block Explorers, what you think. Let us know. Engage with us on the socials at, you know, Block Exploring. We're everywhere.
That's true. We're everywhere. Yeah.
But let's talk about this idea that Bitcoin's desirability goes up when the price goes up. Right? It's this like classic thing where, you know, you always see the memes, right? Like when Bitcoin's crashing, right? No one wants to buy it, but then everyone wants to buy it when it's like, you know, reaching all-time highs, and people who've been in the space for a while are just like, bruh, what? So it's like a real thing to consider. Like maybe there's some odd psychological thing that's happening, you know, when Bitcoin price goes up. People are like, damn, this is when I should buy. I mean, it's probably just FOMO, right? I
think it's partially FOMO. I think it's also one of those, Bitcoin is definitely one of those things that a lot of people think it's a get rich quick kind of thing. And then once it dips for a while or once it crashes, they get dissuaded because they take a very large loss, a much larger loss than you would do with a casual stock that is, you know, like a Microsoft stock. You don't get these kinds of dips on a very well-established company's stock position.
Right. But it's, you know, that's actually kind of weird to me, because like in terms of getting rich quick in crypto, like Bitcoin is probably not what you should be doing, right? No financial advice. But like if you think about it, like Bitcoin crashes hard, but if you think about the speed that it actually goes up, it's like very slow. It takes a long time for Bitcoin to do a 10x or things that it takes other altcoins like, you know, half an hour to do. And the altcoins can go up 50x, you know.
That's true.
in a few minutes.
If you bought,
But like Bitcoin takes
yeah,
ages to
no,
move.
that's true.
In terms of crypto, in the crypto, like, if you're comparing it with stocks, that's another
Yeah.
story, right? But like if you compare it to in the crypto space to altcoins, like, and how much price movement, it's super slow when it's going
No,
upside.
definitely. If you look at like a project like Internet Computer, if you bought that a month ago, you would have done like a 10x
Yeah,
easily. You would have done a 25x, I think, without any
exactly.
effort. This is just
Hmm.
a lot of these kind of projects are really establishing themselves and they're getting valued in a much quicker way. Whereas Bitcoin is like a very, I don't know, well established kind of cryptocurrency. Everyone knows it will be around, and yeah,
Yeah,
makes it more
but
stable.
that's where I find like the mindset. It's like how do you not then think of this as like not a get rich quick thing, but a long-term investment
Yeah,
thing? And that's where I feel like people haven't made that switch with Bitcoin yet, which is so weird to me because the narrative around Bitcoin is that it's digital
yeah,
gold, and right, and you don't buy gold to think that you're gonna get rich quick
no, that's
tomorrow.
true.
Like you buy gold to hold for,
Yeah,
generations or
that's true.
whatever.
But you also have to take into account that you had the gold rush, right? And you
Yeah.
also have a market
Hmm.
cycle peak, which is called the mania. And I feel like the
Hmm.
interest in Bitcoin happens at the point of mania mainly because you saw how fast we went from uh, like a 40k Bitcoin to a 50k Bitcoin. You
Hmm.
know, that was definitely
Yeah,
a
yeah,
mania going on around Bitcoin. And it's the
yeah,
crypto
yeah.
everyone knows. You know, everyone knows Bitcoin. Everyone thinks it's gonna go like the casual what do you call it? Like the crypto noob will say, "I'll buy some
Hmm.
Bitcoin because I've heard a lot about Bitcoin." You know?
I don't know, but then you have those noobs who think you need to buy one whole
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
No, that's true.
Which is such an
Yeah.
L. Whoever still thinks you need to buy a whole coin. I don't know, man. That's a big L in my
Yeah.
opinion. And it's also people who don't want to buy in because they think they can't buy a whole coin, but they don't understand that they can still make gains if they don't have a whole
Yeah.
coin. Like, you can buy fractions of a coin and make
Yeah.
gains. Like, sure, the amount of money you make is proportional to how much money you put
Mm-hmm.
in, but like you gotta put money in to make the money. Like if you don't put it in, you're gonna make zero.
That's true.
You'll make
You make
minus
man
thanks to
inflation.
inflation.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, don't let inflation rob you
No,
all. I'm serious, guys.
but
Inflation will make you make you
that's
broke.
true. But I think definitely, sure, with Bitcoin, if you the statement you put out there, indeed, the desirability goes up significantly. But there's a certain threshold, I think, and that's the moment it does
Hmm.
like a 2x. Then people start
Okay.
getting very interested in Bitcoin. Then kind of like
Hmm.
the, oh wow, this is like a big gain, you know, oh 100% is added to the value of Bitcoin in like a fraction of the time it would be done with a casual stock, and that's definitely I think something that people, you know, and they have a larger influence on it as well because the market cap of
Right.
Bitcoin, I mean, yeah, it's pretty large, but
It's pretty
relatively
big now, but
it's still very influenceable because of the whales.
hmm definitely. I mean, I think at least what bodes well for crypto. I mean, not crypto, but Bitcoin in
Mm-hmm.
general for the long-term hodlers and the BitMaxis is what like this recent crash showed and what it did to the rest of the
Yeah,
market is that like Bitcoin is the big daddy
yeah,
of the space still, and like even for people who believe in like the flippening or who are hardcore ETH fans, like I think
mm-hmm.
myself, are a bit like we're a bit humbled in that like okay, those things might take a bit longer,
Yeah,
to happen. Like Bitcoin is still like gonna be this big player for a long time for like many reasons that we've talked
mm-hmm.
about, and it again goes back to this thing that we've sort of iterated many times like on the podcast, which is just your perspective and like how long term, how short term your perspective is.
Yeah,
That really guides your your movements.
No, that's true.
Your movements in the space.
And I think it shows very clearly that Bitcoin is still one of the more stable investments to make when it comes to crypto. Because sure, it did minus 48% in the past month, but so did ETH, so did Cardano, so did so many projects. They even more. You know, if you were in the lower below the top 10 cryptos, you most likely
took a big L.
Took down 2/3 of your of the current or of the price at the peak, you know. So I mean, I personally invested in Luna. I mean, I got out before, but when I invested, or when I look now at the price versus when I sold, it's at $5, whereas when I sold it was at 15, which that's talk about a big decrease, you know.
That's rough.
That's a bit more than 50.
That's rough,
right?
F in the chat for all the Lunar Bag Holders.
Yeah.
And there are loads. Like Luna is a big project. I feel like has a huge community.
Yeah.
But
and if you look at
I guess they're holding big bags right now.
Yeah, and if you look at the prices overall, I think this, even though it, you know, like let's say Bitcoin breaks that support and goes even lower, still now is a good time to buy because it's half the peak, and that's kind of the point where, you know, it tends to stabilize, and it's also the point that gets surpassed the quickest. You know, if you buy at a peak, you'll be holding for a very long time. If you buy at a dip when there's much fear, much confusion on the market, odds are if you're in the game for a while, you'll get your profit out of there.
Yeah, I think people need to switch up that mindset. Like, Bitcoin price go up, desirability go down. You know, when Bitcoin price go down, desirability go up. You know, then you'll probably will be less likely to sell. Buy at the top, sell at the bottom, which is like, you know, why, I don't know what's the stat, but like, you know, there's that like one thing that everyone says, which is like 80% or 99% of traders lose money over time or whatever, for this reason precisely. And also maybe they just suck at investing. You know, stay bullish on the Block Exploring podcast, because we're coming with you, you know, bringing you the bars of the crypto space right now during bull times and bear times, you know.
But I think that was it for this week's episode of the Block Exploring podcast News Bites. Keep block exploring and have a nice week.